Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Mr. Wiz here. If you are new to this channel, we build video games and we have a lot of fun doing it. So right now, we are on our process of going through this Unity journey. We have been building in Unity. We've been having a lot of fun. We've been getting really creative. And in the last video, I introduced you guys to special effects using particle systems. So that was the big idea in the last one. And we built this cool campfire, which you can kind of see in my world here once it boots up. So we created this campfire with smoke, and we did that in the last video. And I told you guys that that was just the tip of the iceberg. Once you get good at particle systems, there is so much you can do. And I told you that this next video, I would show you some environment effects. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Special effects to enhance your environment. This is going to be a lot of fun. So I hope you're ready. Let's get started. So first off, as we go through this, I'm going to be showing you guys a lot of stuff. This will probably be a little bit of a long video because there's a lot of things I want to cover in it, and it's going to be awesome. So you might want to get your pen and paper ready to write some of these tricks down because you are going to want to use them. Okay, so first off, let me calm down a little bit. I've got my world. We're going to put some fun stuff in it. So let me go ahead and get started with creating my particle system. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to hit the plus sign in my hierarchy. I'm going to go to effects. I'm going to create a new particle system. This first trick I want to show you is going to be for building fireflies. So I'm going to call this particle system firefly, or fireflies, I should probably call it. All right. Oh, by the way, my campfire that I made last time, I really like it. So I'm going to save it as a prefab. When you're building something cool and it comes out the way you want it to, it's always a good idea just to throw it in your prefab folder. If you don't have a prefab folder, you should make one so you can save these things in. Because you never know when you might want to go grab that campfire again. You might want to put it into a different game. You might want to export it at some point, right? So save your prefabs when you make something cool. All right, so fireflies. Right now, of course, it looks nothing like fireflies. So let's look at the edits that I'm going to make to turn this regular, simple particle system into fireflies for my world. All right. So first off, over here, I'm going to move kind of fast on some of these because we just learned a bunch of this in the last video, right? So I'll slow down for the new stuff, but I'll move kind of fast on the things that we've already did. So first things first, cone is not going to be the shape that I'm looking for. Depending on how I wanted to use the fireflies, I might want to use different shapes. So if I did a sphere shape, that would work good if I wanted to, like, maybe just put my fireflies on a certain bush or tree. But for this world, I actually want them to be all over the place. So instead of a sphere, I'm going to use a box. All right, so I've got a box here that I'm going to use as my area for the fireflies. So here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to change the size of the box to cover a large portion of my map. So over here where I have box, there's a section that says emit from. This is kind of neat. So with some of these shapes, not all of them, but with some of these shapes, I can control what part of the shape the particles are being created in. If I choose volume, then that means they're created from somewhere inside of this box, right? I'll give you the example of the cones that we did the other day. With cones, if it emits from the base, that means it's emitting from the circle at the bottom here, which is what we did when we made our fire and our smoke. If we had chosen, instead of base, volume, the particles would come from anywhere inside. So you'll see some particles are created up here instead of down at the bottom, right? So emit from is choosing what part of your shape they are coming from. So going back, I'm going to use a box. I'm going to leave it set to volume because I want my particles to be created inside the box, anywhere inside the box, really. And now I can change the scale and position and all that jazz. What I'm going to do, because I do want to change the scale, rather than just guessing numbers here, which I could do, I could just throw some numbers in here. I want you guys to notice that below this, I have these scene tools that I can play with. So this is kind of cool. So if I click on the first one, I can do things like rotate it and move it. So the same tools we're used to using with our objects are right here that I can just use with the shape. Or I can use this tool and adjust it, kind of like we're used to adjusting colliders. So I can grab it and I can stretch it out here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make this pretty large because I want it to cover a large part of my world. How big do I want to make this thing? I don't need to cover the city part, but I do want it to be most of the places my car is driving. So we'll just put it right around there. So that whole area is going to be the area where my fireflies are growing. Ignore the dots right now. They're going up to the skies. I'm not worried about that. I will change that later. Right now, I'm just deciding the area. So this whole area is where I want them to be. You know what? Let's make it a little bit taller. So let me grab that tall box, and let's try to get it so it goes all the way to the ground here. I should probably move it down. Let me just use my regular move tool and move it down. So I want to go pretty much to the ground here. That's a little bit low. I'm guessing. There's a little bit of guesswork in this, right? That's pretty close. Okay, so I've got it basically where I want it. Looks like, anyways, best I can tell from eyeballing it here. So that whole box area is where I want my fireflies to be. So I've got the area set up. I've got this stuff set up correctly. So we're not going to mess with shape anymore. Let's start messing with the other things. So in the emission area, I can change the rate over time. Right now it's creating 10 per second. That's fine for now. I might change it later, but that's fine for now. The big thing I want to change is how the particles are acting. So here's where things start getting kind of fun. If we scroll down a little ways, where I have all these different options, there's a lot of these that we didn't talk about the last time. One of the ones I wanted to show you guys is the one that says noise. This is cool. So noise allows your particles to not just move in a straight line. Right now, they're all moving in a straight line. If I add noise, it kind of causes them to wiggle or move, almost like they're moving through something. So if I select it, notice how my particles started moving. Right? By the way, this is something you could possibly put on your fire or smoke that we did in the campfire. You might want to add some noise to that to give it a little bit of flicker more if you want to, right? So this is a perfectly normal thing you can add to a lot of stuff. In this case, I want to use noise because I want my lights to act like bugs. I want them to act like lightning bugs or fireflies. So they're already kind of flying in a sort of zigzag. So that does seem pretty bug-like. Now I could edit this. So down here where it has strength, I can increase the strength of the noise, and that causes them to move even more. So here's 3. A second ago we were looking at 1. So I can kind of decide how much I want them to zig and zag and move around, right? I can also click on the button and set up random like we did before. So maybe I want it to be a random between 1 and 3. That's actually not bad. So some of mine are zigging and zagging more than others. It's starting to look pretty bug-like, isn't it? Pretty cool, right? There is more stuff I can do down here with the octaves. If I want to get really crazy with it, I can adjust these octaves. It changes the pattern. You guys see this pattern here? This is the pattern that it's causing the zigs and the zags, right? So if I change the octaves, it changes how chaotic it is. Now it's a lot of really small zigs and zags. So you're kind of deciding how crazy the movements are by the bigger this number is. And you can adjust other things, multiplier, scale. These are all kind of the same deal, right? So that changes the way that it's zigging and zagging. You can also change it from 2D to 3D, which is a higher quality. I'm not for sure, but I'm assuming the 3D, since it says high quality, it probably uses more memory. Might slow down your program a little bit. So leaving it at medium is fine. All right, so I've got some cool particles. I've got a cool area. I've got them zigging and zagging in all sorts of ways, but they're still all flying up. And what I really want is for them to just fly around inside of the box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to where my creation is, where I have things like their lifetime, start speed, all that. And we're going to set their start speed to 0. Now, would you look at that? They're still zigging and zagging, but they're not flying away from the box. We have some movement here that's actually looking a little bit like flies or fireflies or lightning bugs, right? They're zigging and zagging all over the place. This is starting to look pretty cool. So, of course, I can change their lifetime, decide how long I want each lightning bug to exist in the world. That's really up to me. 5 seconds isn't bad. I might leave it at 5, to be honest. Start size. 1 is way too big for a lightning bug. What about 0.1? What would that look like? Oh, now they're looking nice and tiny. Let's get closer to it so we can see it better. I'm going to zoom in. Here we go. Oops, I didn't mean to click on that. All right. Yeah, this is looking pretty cool. All right. 0.1's pretty small, but it might work for what I need. Okay, we're going to change the color to bright yellow so it looks more like fireflies. Very nice. Let's see what it looks like in the real world. So let's drive around in this and see what it looks like. I don't see them. Where are they? Oh, there they are. Cool, cool, cool. Right now, they actually don't look much like fireflies. They look almost more like bugs. So not quite the cute magical creatures I was hoping for. So we're going to make some more changes to them. Right now, that they could just be regular flies. Okay, so some other stuff I wanted to look at with you. Which section was it? Was it also in the noise section? Oh yeah, where it says size amount. So in addition to changing its direction with noise, you can also have it change its size with noise. I'm going to do another random between two numbers. And let's say 0 and 1. What does 0 and 1 look like? Oh, you see that? They're getting bigger and smaller. They're starting to twinkle a little bit. So we got some twinkling happening. Maybe instead of 0 and 1, I should try 1 and 2. Let's see what that looks like if I fly around inside of it here. This is starting to look more like fireflies. Oh yeah, it's starting to look more like them. Oop, I'm driving sideways. All right, that was bad driving. Let's get out of this for a second. I forgot to pre-warm it. Remember, if you want something to already be active when you start the game, you got to pre-warm it, right? So if I pre-warm it, they should already be around me when I start. Here we go. Okay, so you see how they're changing size? They're getting big and small. That's looking pretty cool. There's not many around me. I might need to make the size of this box bigger. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's starting to look more like fireflies. I kind of like it. They're looking pretty neat. Looking pretty neat. But I think we can still go a little bit better. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go down to the color over lifetime. We've looked at this one before. I'm going to turn that on. So we looked at this when we made our fire, and we had it start one color, then change to another color, and change to another color. Here's what I want to do. I want my fireflies to actually blink, to turn on and off. So I want them to transition between yellow and black. So for my first color, we'll go ahead and make the first color black. So we'll start black. And then somewhere around here, I'll switch it to bright yellow. Then around here, we'll switch it back to black. So I'm just picking basically when it's going to do it, right? I'll do another one here to bright yellow. And we'll do the last one black. And maybe I'll move this one to be a little bit closer. So basically, the way that I've created this is each firefly will blink twice. So this is over its entire lifetime. It starts black, it goes yellow, starts black, it goes yellow, then it goes back to black. All right, if we test it this way, it'll look okay, but it's still not quite finished. Let's take a look at it right now, the way I have it set up right now. See if you notice what I'm talking about here. I need to move this box so I don't have to turn around every time. All right. So they're going from yellow to black, but they're fading from yellow to black. Okay? They're fading because when we created this, we had them fading from yellow to black and then back to yellow, right? So here's a cool thing I didn't show you guys in the last video, where it says blend classic. Instead of blending, I can choose fixed. Now, there's no blending. Now it's just yellow, black, yellow, black. You see that? That's pretty cool, right? So let's try it now. Now they should literally be blinking, almost like Christmas lights. They'll be blinking yellow and black. And honestly, you could use something like this to make Christmas lights. Look at that! Look at that! They look so real. These look like fireflies. These look like fireflies. They're blinking on and off. But even when they're off, they're still in the world. You can still see them as black dots, just like you would in nature. This is so neat. Oh my gosh, I'm happy. Okay, so that's how you make fireflies. That is cool. All right, so at this point in time, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to save my fireflies as a prefab because they are dope, and I might want to use them later. So I'm going to drag and drop them in here. So now I've got a prefab of that. Always save things that you like to make and that are cool and you might want to use later. Okay, so we talked about building fireflies. That's not the only thing I'm going to show you today. Remember, I planned on showing you a lot of stuff. I'm going to delete these fireflies because I don't want them interacting with what we're about to do next. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you is fog. Now, you might say, hold up, I already learned how to do fog. You showed me fog when we were learning about the environmental lighting. Well, what I showed you is the hazy lighting effect that imitates fog. So right now, I've got this hazy effect in my world, which makes those mountains a little bit harder to see when they're farther away. When I get closer to them, they're easier to see. We did that with the window rendering lighting. We went to environment, and we affected the fog here by turning it on or off, right? And by the way, if I didn't mention it before, you can also change the color of the fog here. You can change whether it's linear or exponential, and you can adjust so if you have linear, you can adjust the distance, which is pretty cool. If you do exponential instead of distance, you pick the density. So there's actually a lot of things you can do with fog if you decide to use this. But this isn't true fog. This is a haze, right? There's no actual clouds that for you to drive through or walk through. A real thick fog is like clouds near the ground where you can walk through it. Have you ever walked through fog? It's cool. It's cold, but it's also pretty cool. So what we're going to do is actually create real fog on the ground that you can move through. So I'm going to turn off the hazy look because I don't necessarily want it. We're going to do something different now. We're going to create real fog. So here's my world without any haze, without anything there. It's just a dark world with my headlights, and the haze went away, so it's all cleared now all the way into the distance. Let's create some fog on the ground. All right, so just like before, I am going to add a particle system. So add effects, particle. We're going to name this one fog. Because we want it covering a large area near the plane, once again, I am going to change the shape to a box. I think a box will work good for this. So I'm going to change it to a box. And instead of having it cover the large area, I'm actually just going to make a long rectangle. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a long rectangle. So let me change the scale in two of these directions. So for the X, I'm going to set it, how big do I want to make this? Maybe 1,000. And for the Y, no, not the Y, the Z. For the Z, well, do I even need to change that part? I might not need to change this part. Hold on. I could probably just keep it, yeah. I'm just going to have the one direction long. So all I changed is the X to 1,000. Okay, so right now it's the particles are going up. I actually want them to go along the side here, so I'm going to rotate them so that they are level. Let me check the rotation. All right, I always like to round it. So since it's negative 179, I'm just going to round it to negative 180. There we go. And let's put this closer to the ground. You know what? I could probably make it a little bit taller. Let's make it a little bit taller. So the scale tool, let's change its Z. Was it a Z or its Y? It might be its Y. Let's change its Y just a little bit. Okay, so that's 3 meters. Maybe I'll do 5 meters. All right, so I'm making it 5 meters tall. Trying to level it out here because there's no reason causing fog underground. All right, so I've got it 5 meters tall and pretty long. And my goal here is to create a wall of fog. A wall of fog that's going to come in from the distance. Now I need to decide which direction I want my fog coming from. I don't want it coming from over the mountains. I'm going to have it come from the left side over here. So let's rotate this again. I'm going to rotate it this way. So it's really up to you how you decide to, do all this. I'm going to change this to -90 now. There we go. All right. And I'm going to position it in the distance because I want the fog coming from way over there. So it's going to be coming from far, far away. All right. So let's start making this work. Obviously, it's got a lot of ground to cover, so I'm going to need to give it a long lifetime. How long do I want to make it? Let's see, what's 100 do? Oh, 100 is pretty good. It covers most of the area that my player is going to be in. I could make it go a little bit longer. What about maybe 300? What's 300 look like? Okay, so for 300, I have this gap. You guys see this gap here? That's because I've run out of my maximum. Remember we talked about before max particles down here. My max particles right now are set for 1,000, and because of how long a lifetime these guys have, I'm going to need a larger max particle. So let's do 10,000. There we go. So now I've got enough particle allowance to create a lot of fog. I can probably back this up a little bit more. There we go. I really want it to surround the whole area near where my player is. But it doesn't necessarily need to be the whole map. I could make it the whole map, but I'm not worried about that right now. I have a big map. Your maps are probably smaller than this one, unless you added a lot of terrains. Okay, so I've got a lot of space. I've got a lot of particles. Now to make them look more like fog, we're going to need to adjust things like the size and possibly the speed and other things. So let's go ahead and do that. And some of this stuff you guys should already be comfortable with because we've done it before. So for the start size, I'm going to go random because it wouldn't make sense for all the clouds to be the same size. So how big do I want these clouds to be? They're fairly big, probably. Let's go with maybe 3. Let's go bigger. 5. Ooh, 5's pretty good. Maybe 5 to 10. Ooh, that's starting to look pretty decent. This is starting to look pretty decent. My clouds are pretty far apart, though. I'm wondering if I might want to increase the emission. Right now it's only 10. What if we did a lot more fog? What if we did 30? Ooh, that's pretty big. Could go higher. What about 100? What's 100 look like? Oh, I think I bugged it. It's having trouble doing 100. Oh, I must have run out of max particles again. All right, let me change my max particles from instead of 10,000 up to 100,000. Oh my goodness, that's so many particles. All right, let's see what it looks like. Oh, I forgot to pre-warm it. Let's pre-warm it so I don't have to wait for the clouds to get here. There we go. That is a lot of fog. All right, so we can adjust it some more from here. This is starting to look very, very foggy. I think my fog might be too big. So I think 10's too much. Maybe we should do 2 to 5. Let's see what that looks like. So a lot of this is just adjusting and making it look good. All right, now that's too small. Ugh. All right. Maybe 3 to 7. I don't know. I'm just guessing whatever I think looks good. I don't remember what numbers I've used in the past. I think my box might be too big. Some of these are spawning too high. Let's change the scale of this box again. Let's go with a lower size. Let's go with 2 meters. So it should only be spawning near the ground, right? I'm bringing it down near the ground. Okay. So now all the fog should be kind of low. That should help some of that problem, because some of those clouds are too high. Okay, so it's starting to look more like fog. I still have some more adjustments I can make. The size, I still am not sure about. The speed's pretty fast, too. Let's adjust the speed. If we do a random, maybe 1 to 2. Nice and slow, because fog should be slow, right? Ooh, it's starting to look more like fog. We're getting closer. We're getting closer. Might need to go a little bit bigger with that size again. Maybe 5. What was it before I had? 5 to 10? Let's try that again. Getting this exactly right is really tricky. I wonder if I still need more. I put a lot of them on the emission, but they still seem really spaced apart, really a whole lot. Rate over time is set to 100. What if I did 200? Oof, it's really struggling to make them. Oh, there we go. All right, I feel like this is pretty close to what I was looking for. All right, so I do want to change the look of some things. Right now, my fog is bright, bright white, which really wouldn't make sense in a situation like this. So we're going to change the color. The start color, instead of going bright or white, let's go more with like a grayish look. And then I also want to make it transparent. So down here, where I have my RGB, the A is the transparency. Fog should be at least semi-transparent. I need to decide how much, right? So if I start right there, it's about halfway. Let's take a look at it now. So now it should be transparent and gray. Oh, look at that. Now it's starting to look like fog. Look at that. That looks great. That looks so cool. So now I've got a great fog going on here. All right. I like this. I like this. Okay, so a couple more things I wanted to mention before we leave the fog setup. Down in the bottom where it says renderer, if you click on that, this allows you to change some interesting things about the fog itself. One of the things I want you to notice is down here where it says cast shadows or receive shadows. So this is important. When you have a large particle, like this fog is pretty large, you need to decide, how do you want light to be affected, or do you want light to be affected? So cast shadows means if my headlights in my car hit one of these clouds of fog, should it create a shadow behind it? Is my fog thick enough that it should be casting a shadow? That's something I need to be thinking about. If I want my fog to cast a shadow, then I need to turn this on. Then I have one for receiving shadows. If the fog is behind something that I'm casting a shadow on, like that tree, should the fog catch the shadow of the tree? Is it thick enough that it should be catching the shadow? In this case, from what I just made, I think it should receive the shadows. I'm not sure if it should cast them. I'm not convinced that it should cast them, but I do think it should receive them. Let's take a look and see if it's working. So if I shine the light at something and one of these clouds of fog gets behind it, it should receive the shadow. Let's see if I can get an example to work for us here. It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. Yeah, there we go. I think I saw some shadow on that cloud there. So, yeah, that's basically the idea there. You can decide whether you want your particles to make shadows or receive shadows. So just a fun little extra you can do, which most of the time doesn't matter, but if you have really large particles like this, it can. All right. So, once again, I'm going to save this as a prefab because I like my fog. So we're going to throw you in the prefab folder too. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Now, I'm going to make a variation of this. Okay, let's delete this fog. Boom. I'm going to put some more fog in my world using the prefab. And I'm going to change this prefab because actually I don't want it to be fog. I want this to be clouds. We're going to make clouds. Yes, we are. Look at us. Look at how far we've come. Cloud makers. World makers. That's you. World maker. All right, let's go. So, I've got my fog, which I'm going to change into clouds. Right now, it is... Oop, I didn't mean to do that. I'm changing my name. Get rid of that D at the end there. Okay, there we go. So, let me move these clouds up towards the sky. So we're still making them as particles, but now instead of putting it down there where the player is, we're going to put it up here. And let's put it farther back, because it's going to cover more of the map. We don't need it to be quite this dense, so we can do less of them at a time. How many clouds should we make at a time? Let's say 30? Maybe. And we'll give them much longer life. Lifetime. What about 1,000? No? Let's see what 1,000 looks like. Restart that. There we go. So we got a big area of clouds there. Oh, I might need to make my box a little bit bigger. So let's go for the shape there. 1,000 doesn't look like it's going to cut it. Let's try 5,000. That seems to be covering a pretty big area. All right, let me restart it so I can see what it looks like. There we go. Look at these clouds. It's covering my whole map just about. So let's see what it looks like from down below. Okay, I do have clouds in the sky. They're pretty high up and they're a little hard to see. Let's move these down a lot closer to the player so I can tell what they are. We'll bring them down to about here, so they're just above the mountains. All right. Let's check them out now. Are they close enough that I can see them? Oh, they definitely are. So there's my clouds. Now, it looks like they could probably be a lot bigger. So let's go with the larger size here with my clouds. Start size, ooh, how big should we go? Maybe 50 to 100? Will it let us do that? Okay, I may have too many clouds now. If I go that big, that's a lot of clouds. So let's do fewer of them. All right, so instead of rate over time being 30, maybe 10. So I'm just experimenting with these numbers. Of course, you guys can decide what to make yours look like. Okay, so it's definitely looking more like thick cloud cover. Not bad, not bad. Maybe still a little too thick. What if it's only creating like 2 a second? That's pretty slow. But hey, my clouds are also moving slow. I'll have to play around with this a little bit, decide what I like the most. Of course, I can change things like the color again. Maybe I don't need to make them transparent this time, right? We can decide some different stuff there. Yeah, it's not that bad. This isn't that bad. I still think I could probably do better with a little bit more time. The clouds are moving really slowly. Maybe I need to let them move faster and be a little bit larger. I'm not sure. I have a feeling you guys will probably be better at the clouds than I am. Rate over time. How fast do these clouds move? 10? Did 10 work? Definitely have a very thick cloud cover. Very thick cloud cover. So, yeah. I'm not the best at clouds. My fog looked pretty cool. I'm not the best at clouds. I have a feeling you guys could probably do better with that. Is there anything else I could adjust? Lifetime. Oh, you know what? I should make it random lifetime. That might help. What if the lifetime was random between 100 and 1,000? Randomness sometimes helps a lot. Oh, that's not too bad. I'm getting closer to a good cloud cover. All right, we're going to pause on the clouds because I feel like you guys could probably do better at this than I could if I'm being completely honest with y'all, which I try to be. All right, so we're going to pause on the clouds and we're going to move on to something else. Oh, of course, with the clouds, just like before, you could always choose to have them cast shadows. I'm going to get rid of receive shadows. I don't think they need to receive shadows, but you could have them cast shadows if you want to. That way, the moonlight and the sunlight is kind of blocked by some of the clouds. That would be kind of interesting. The world gets a little bit darker if you have a lot of cloud cover. So you could always do that if you wanted to. All right. So we are going to move on from the clouds for just a moment. And now, let's talk about things like rainfall or snowfall. All right, here we go. I'm going to create another effect, another particle system effect. We're going to make this one another box shape. Not an emission in the box section. Here we go. We're going to make this one nice and large again. I'm going to do 1,000 by 1,000. And I'm going to rotate it so that they are coming down. Which way are they moving right now? They're going up right now? Okay, maybe I didn't want to change the Z. Maybe I wanted to change the Y. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so my X and my Y are set for 1,000, and right now they're moving up. I'm going to flip this over so that they are moving down. Let's go ahead and rotate it around here. There we go. And it looks like negative 270 is the number we're looking for here. Okay. All right. We're going to zoom in here. Right now, it is way too low. It is near the ground. I'm going to make this either rain or snow, so I am moving it up high enough that it can create the rain or snow look that we are looking for. So right around there is probably good. Okay, so you can probably figure out some of this on your own for where I'm going with this. All right, so fun thing about that, we can go ahead and I'm going to pre-warm it. We can give it a nice lifetime to make sure it has enough time to hit the ground. Maybe around 30. That's pretty good. Is that hitting the ground? It looks like it should. Let's check it out. I'm going to turn off my clouds. So right now it's a little bit hard to see because the clouds are there. I'm going to disable them. So now we're just looking at the new particles. Oop, I'm losing power. That's not fun. All right. Looks like my particles are all over there and not where I am, so I'll have to move them a little bit. But we've got particles coming down, and they do look a little bit snow-like. Let's move them so that they're closer to me. Put them over here. Here we go. All right, so we have some particles that are drifting down like snow. So it already looks very snow-like, which is pretty cool, but we can do better. So we are going to go ahead and create more of them with our emission. How many do we want to make? Maybe 50 per second. Let's take a look at that. Oh, that's a lot of them. Here we go. So we got some cool stuff that's starting to look more like snow. Yep, pretty neat. I'm going to make some more, and I'm also going to make them smaller. So let's do 100 per second, and let's do the size, the start size. We'll give it some randomness. Let's say somewhere between 0.1 and 0.3 maybe. Lifetime's pretty good. Start speed's not bad. I might leave it at 5 for now. I can change it more in a few moments. Let's see. Oh, I don't see it. Why don't I see it? Why don't I see it? Did we do something wrong? Are they too small? I don't see them. Do you guys see them? What did I do wrong? Is 0.1 too small? Earlier we had it set to 1. So 1 I can see. Why are they taking so long to fall? I have it set to pre-warm. That's weird that it's taking so long to fall. Okay. So anyways, I want to show you guys a couple more things. So feel free to change the size of them however you want to there. Maybe it's my maximum. Maybe my maximum isn't high enough. Let's do max particles 10,000. There we go. Okay, I think that was the problem. I think my max particles weren't high enough. There we go. Okay, so I've got all the snow, It is too large, but, we can change that later. Okay, so I want to show you some other things that we can do with this snow to make it a little bit more realistic. So down here where it says collision, if I go into collision and I turn collision on, some fun things happen. So I have the type. This is basically asking, what do I want it to collide with? If I leave it for planes, then it only collides with planes, which works fine if you're building a world that uses a lot of planes. But our world actually doesn't have any planes. So I'm going to change it to world. Now it will collide with anything in the world. So I can choose the mode. It is a 3D world, so we will leave it at that. It has things like dampen and bounce and some other stuff here. Let's just see what it looks like before we change anything. So watch what happens when the snowflakes hit the ground. Did you see that? The snowflakes are bouncing off the ground. Kind of silly. Doesn't make sense for snow to do that. So we are going to set where it had collision. We're going to set the bounce to 0, so it no longer bounces. Let's see what happens now. Look at that. It landed on the ground. But then it starts to roll away like a ball. If it lands on one of these hills, it rolls off the hill like a ball. Right? Doesn't really make a lot of sense for snow to do that. What I really want snow to do is just land and stay. So what we're going to do is in the collision section where it says dampen. Dampen says how much it loses its speed when it hits something. So when it collides, how much of its speed do we want to get lost? We want to lose all of its speed, which is 1, which is the max. So now when it hits something in the world, the snowflake stops moving. Starts to look more like actual snow. Look at that. It works. We have snow that sits on the ground where it lands. Now, of course, once again, the size is too big for snow, so we'll have to adjust that. What size should we go with this? I'm thinking 0.1 to 0.3 is what I tried earlier. Let's try that again. 0.1 to 0.3. Give it some randomness there. Okay, so now we have little snowflakes. They're harder to see, but they're falling. There we go. And if they land on something, they should stay there. There we go. We've got a Christmas miracle. Snow landing on the ground. All right. Now, of course, you can do more with that. You can change, the size to whatever you feel like fits best. In the collision section, there were some other fun things here to talk about. There is something that talks about lifetime loss. So when a particle collides, it will lose a fraction of its lifetime. So right now, the lifetime is set to 30 seconds. So depending on how long it took to get to you, however much time it would have left, it would stay there on the ground. So if you didn't want that, if you wanted it to die pretty quick, you could change its lifetime on the collision section. So say how much life it loses. Maybe it loses half of its life when it collides. Maybe something else. So just some fun stuff here you can do. One more thing I'm going to add to my snow, just to make it a little bit more realistic, is the noise. So if we turn on the noise, our snow should be able to zig and zag as it falls, as if it was caught by a light breeze, which is pretty normal for snow. I don't know how many of you guys have been around snow, but adding a little bit of noise does help with the realism. So now, instead of falling straight down, the snowflakes are going to zig and zag a little bit, just like they were real snowflakes. Look at that. Isn't that cool? That is so cool. That is so cool. I might want to add more snow. I feel like I don't have enough now. Where was my emission? There he is. We have 100. That is a lot. But we do have a big section, too. If I do 300, how much snow do I have now? Oh, look at that. Lovely snow falling everywhere. I love this. I really love this. So if you wanted to create a winter wonderland, you could do something like this. Now, of course, feel free to adjust the color and all the rest of it, but having the noise set up so it floats around kind of fun is great, and having the collision set up so it doesn't disappear as soon as it hits the ground is also a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm going to save this. I'm going to call this snow. I'm going to save this. Snow And we're going to drag this into my prefabs as well. All right. I didn't save the clouds, but you know what? I might not, because I didn't like the way the clouds came out. Okay, so I've got a lot of stuff here. We're going to do one more. We're going to do rain. So I'm going to alter the snow one to make rain. So let me grab the snow prefab. I'm going to bring a new one out here. And let's change the snow one into rain. So once again, I'm going to put it over my little town here. I want it to be up in the air so that it falls on the player. So let's bring it up. All right, so we're going to change some things, obviously, because it's not going to be snow this time. It's going to be rain. So I'm going to get rid of the noise because I don't need that. I'm going to get rid of the collision. I don't need that. The other stuff is probably mostly okay. What happens if I play it right now? Okay, so I have snow that's falling straight down. I want to turn the snow into rain. So a couple things I'm going to do to it. Obviously, I'm going to change the way it looks because rain doesn't look like snow. So let's just go with a different color here. Maybe more of a watercolor, something like that. That's pretty decent. All right. And then, here's where things get fun. Do you guys see the one that says gravity source and gravity modifier? You can give your particles gravity. So rain falls with gravity. It doesn't fall nice and slow like snow does. It falls with gravity. So I'm going to turn gravity on. Set my gravity modifier. Let's just set it to 1. And now my rain should fall like rain. Look at it. Did you see it? There it is. It's falling. It's just a light rain because I don't have a lot of it being created. But it is falling. I have raindrops. Raindrops are falling on my head. Look at that. Very cool. And they speed up as they fall. And that's the gravity part of it, right? So as they're falling, they are gaining more velocity. They're gaining that because of the speed of gravity pulling it down. All right. And of course, I could make more rain if I wanted to. What 500 look like? Would that work? Or am I running into an emission problem again? It's actually raining outside right now as I'm recording this, which is kind of funny. All right. Yeah, so it's raining. It's a light rain still. I would have to do probably a lot of particles to make it a heavy rain. But this is neat. So now keep in mind, if I'm going to add rain to my game, I should probably add a rain sound effect to my game. Depending on how heavy the rain is, I might need to go with a heavy rain sound. So this is just another way to use particles to create an environment effect. So in this video, we talked about fireflies. We talked about fog. We talked about cloud cover. We talked about snow. We talked about rain. So we've covered all of our bases here. Let me go ahead actually and rename this one as rain. And I'm going to save this in my prefabs as well. Do I want to save it as a prefab variant or an original? We will do original. All right, there we go. So hopefully you've made some fun stuff and you've saved them as prefabs. I hope you did. That way you can decide to pull them out whenever you need them. And I hope you had some fun with that. If you learned something new today, click the like button. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe and come on back to our channel so you can learn some more stuff with us as we continue to grow and build together. I'll see you guys next time.